that's cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's 7:05 and we're gonna begin. So we're DSC Ottawa, Developer Student Clubs. If you're definitely part of it, but we're doing the workshop in React, Intro to React. And my name's Chetan, and this is Adam. You want to introduce yourself, Adam?
Yeah, my name is Adam. I'm pretty new when it comes to DSC, but I love React, and it's honestly what I almost do every day. So
Yeah, I also work with React every day for my job, so I think both of us are pretty competent in React. Anyways, so first we're gonna go over like what websites use React if you didn't already know. One of the first websites is Reddit. Reddit uses React, and React's actually maintained and made by Facebook. So it's all the Facebook subsidiaries like WhatsApp, Messenger, obviously Facebook, all those use React. And Netflix uses React, Airbnb, Khan Academy, and Uber. So I thought that was pretty cool that I just wanted to put out and show. And we're gonna get started right now. So first thing you're gonna do is go to the directory that you wanna install the project in. And assuming you have npm JS installed, you run npx create React app, my app, or whatever you want to name it. I'm gonna name mine my app 2. This is gonna take some time. Like for me, it takes, I don't know, 20 seconds. So kind of have to wait. To install Node.js first. I think Adam sent the link to that.
Yes, Node.js. Feel free to use 14.16. This is what I recommend.
Yeah, it's taking a sweet. Oh, here we go. Finally done. Okay, then you can cd into your directory. I think I did like my app 2, but I'm just gonna cd into my app. And that's the one I have open right now. Or if you want like more, or you can do code dot or Adam dot, or just open it from whatever IDE you're using.
Mine resetting the link. When you closed it, it turned off the session.
What'd you say?
When you closed the VS Code tab, it turned off the session.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, okay, okay. I'll share it back with you. I'll share it back with you. But yeah, so this is what it's gonna look like when you just open the app. And I'm just gonna go over like some basic concepts. This is the static HTML file that you'll find in the Create React tab boilerplate. And down here is when the React source code actually attaches onto the app. If you want to run this, you can actually do npm start. I'll show what it looks like. So yeah, that's what that looks like. Create React app. And even in the HTML, you can do something like you can add stuff. So if you want to add here like an h1 tag, that's also possible. But as you can see, like this is the React app, it's a single page app, and this is just HTML, and it's not part of the React boilerplate. So in the source folders where you can do most of your work, and that's what goes on the mounted part, the root. So all this code is transferred over here. If I edit something over here, it automatically refreshes. If I do H1, I make a DSC workshop, you see that shows up. So for now, we're not going to use any of this stuff. We're going to delete it and delete this too. Yeah, so we just have a blank app at this point. The first thing we're going to do is make a component, and I'm going to go over class components first, and Adam's going to go over functional components. They're very similar, but functional is the more modern way of doing things. So make a folder called components and make a class called React class.js. You can name this also React class.component.jsx, or you can just name it JS. Doesn't matter, up to you. I'm just gonna copy over this code right here and name it React class, and I'm also gonna import So right now it's a functional component, and what we're going to do is change it to a class component. The way you do that is you just write class, React class, extends React dot component, and returns not really a function. So I'll go over the lifecycle methods that actually goes on. So whenever a component gets mounted, there's a constructor that runs on, and you have to code that in. The next thing that happens is the rendering process, where React attaches the elements onto the document object model. So using the return function and the render function. And right after that, it runs component did mount and component did update, and component will unmount right before the component unmounts, obviously. Is there anything you want to add, Adam?
For now, no. Looks good, yeah. So let's keep going.
Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is make a constructor, like I said, because that's the first step that happens in the life cycle. In the constructor, you just import props as usual, and you call your superclass while you can initialize the states over here too. And the state is just basically React's way of storing value in a variable. So the way you initialize that is just this.state equals comma. And then for this app that we're making right here, we're going to do something called count. We're going to initialize it at 0. So if you look over here, it's blank, nothing's showing up. And we actually have to import this class onto the app right here. The way you do that is just import React class from .components / React class. And we can have that. Yeah, we're using class components right now. And Adam's going to go with the functional components too.
You just need to have the render method.
All right. So, oops. So like I said here, after the constructor, you need to have a render method. The way you do that is just render, and then you return something. So you always have to return a div or a single HTML model. And right now I'm returning a div, and we're gonna have here counter. So class component counter. With these curly brackets right here, you can actually write JSX code, and that just means JavaScript code. So what I'm trying to do is write the by the JavaScript right here. So I can have the counter. So the way you do that is just this dot state count.
You got to remove the parentheses from component.
Where's that? Oh, oops. There we go. So class component counter 0. And the app that we're making right now is just a button. So I'm adding a button that's just going to say click me. And I messed that up.
You got to wrap in one thing.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, you can only return one div or one element. So in this case, when I had the button underneath, it was 2, and that's why it didn't work. So that's something called click me. And I'm going to have an onClick handler. And right here, we're trying to update this count variable +1 every time someone clicks it. And you can just do something like this dot state dot count +1 in React. You see like there's a red sign, and even if you do like plus equals 1, it's not the proper way of doing things. You have to use something called set state. So something called this dot set state, and you just write this or just count, and I'm going to update it to this dot state dot count +1. So right here, you see it being 0, and upon every click, it's going to go up. And what happens every time I click it is the component actually updates. It runs this right here. I'm going to code this function right here too, so you can see that it works. So what do you have? Component did mount. And the other one is component did update. So every time a component mounts, I'm just going to console log this component mounted. I spelled that wrong. Anyways, so yeah, you see that comes up, and every time it updates, nothing happens right now because I don't have anything here. So I'm just gonna add this component updated. There we go. You see this counter is going up every time I click it because this function is running every time I do set state. So the component's updating. The other one we can do is a component will unmount. I'm gonna demo that too. Console log. This component is out to unmount. And I'm actually gonna have to go to our parent class right here and make an edit here, just so the log stays. So counter app. And you see right here, this component is about to unmount. So as this page was refreshing, counter, it runs again every time. So I'm just gonna get rid of this. And I think that's all I had to talk about in terms of class components. So I'm gonna hand it over to Adam, if I can figure out the invite link. Okay, all yours.
Awesome. Yeah, mind if I just add a few things?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I do want to specify when does the component update. So the component, or in this case, you can think of a component as just a file, right? You got to accept my invite, by the way, as a JSX file, right? The only time this thing will update is when the state updates, which is why state in React is super important, because state is just bounded to the component, or when the component will receive props. I will go over props in a second, but think of it that way. Component did update right here only works when state is updated or new props are put in. That's it. Does it not show my cursor? Oh, for me it's read only apparently. Sorry, give me a second here. I need to sign in for. I don't know why. Whoops. All right, perfect. I'm back. Awesome. Now it should work. That's normal.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh
Okay,
yeah. There you go.
I'm back. Okay. You guys need to sign in. Anyways, so now we'll go over functional components. So recently, like I would say, like starting last year, React started pushing towards functional components. Functional components were always a thing, but they were kind of used as like when you don't really need state, right? They weren't a replacement for classes. It was just like an easier way to quickly write up a component. Although in the last few years, React has been pushing towards something that's called hooks and is strongly bounded to functional components. We're going to go over some hooks today. In my personal opinion, I prefer the old way, but yet again, there's not much you can do when React is kind of pushing it and it's trying to phase out classes. It doesn't mean that classes are now obsolete. It's just that React, the dev team, is pushing towards hooks. In all honesty, I don't really know why. I still haven't done the research, but it's not the end of the world. Anyways, let's start off this file as regular. So we import React from React. That has to be in every React file. And then we can go over here and we can declare, yet again, a function, right? It's a React functional component, just a function. So we can do this const my function is equal to, this is just an ES6 arrow function. And then we just return, let's say, test. All right. And then as always, I need to export this because if I don't export it, then whenever I input the file, nothing's going to be used from it. My function. So can you go back to the browser real quick? So right now, you'll still see that nothing shows up. And that's because I haven't imported it. So I can actually import multiple different files, multiple different components into one React component. So right here, I can import my functional component. If you can call it React functional, import React functional from /components/React functional. And you will see that these two different components can work together, but still be separate from one another. So if Chetan goes ahead and clicks click me, it will not affect at all the functional component because it is still different, right? So that still doesn't update. What I want to go towards next right now is the hooks. So the first hook we're going to talk about is set state, or sorry, not set state, use state. That is the hooks version of state when it comes to functional components. So it is done a bit differently. So first of all, you actually need to import it. You can import it as a from the React class. I forget what's the exact term. We can import it in these brackets from the React class. It's not a default export. And then from there, right before the return, so you don't want to add this in return. You want to do it before return. You declare an array. And then over here, you put use state. So what use state will do is it will return two things in this array. The first one being the actual state. So let's call this one count. And the second one, a function to update this count. And I can go over here, and in these parentheses, I pass in one argument, and that argument is what I want the state to be. So at the very beginning, when the component first mounts, I want the state to be 0. So right now, if I go ahead and let's say I replace test with functional counter. I spelled it wrong. Functional counter. And then over here, I can just put in count because I have it declared up here. And I save this, it'll reload, it'll recompile, and you see functional counter is 0, right? Just as I said it. Now I can have another button, right? Let's say we want to call it same thing as last time. Click me. Before I do it right, I do want to explain one thing. So this is a very, very kind of React noob mistake, and I've done it hundreds of times. Like, trust me, I've done this so many times. When I first started coding React, it drove me insane. So if I go over here and I do onClick is equal to update count plus 1, the React app is actually going to crash, right? And why does this crash? You can see right there, it's highlighting too many re-renders. React limits the number of re-renders to prevent an infinite loop. So what I've created right here is actually an infinite loop. And the reason why is every time I update count, I'm updating the state. And as I mentioned before, every time I update state, the entire component re-renders, it updates as well. So I update state, it re-renders. I update state, it re-renders. But why am I updating the state? I haven't clicked the button yet. Well, the reason is when React first renders a component, it runs every function. It doesn't care. It's a bit weird, but it runs every function, right? So in order to prevent this, what I have to do is that I have to wrap it in an anonymous function. So instead of running this right here and like initializing it, instead of initializing the state function, I can just initialize this anonymous function, which will do absolutely nothing. So this is just a way to prevent these infinite loops from breaking your app. And I forgot a bracket, didn't I? Where did I forget it? Right here. My bad. So now we can go ahead, we can update the counter, and it works perfectly. And as you can see, both functions will update individually, right? One doesn't affect the other because they are using their own state. But let's say I actually don't want that, and I want this functional component to affect the counter of another component, right? So this is where props come in. So what we just did right here in app.js, when we went ahead and we imported a different component, we will do the same thing in our functional component. So I can go ahead and let's create a new component called child.js. And in this file, I will just yet again create a new functional component. Child is equal to this, return h1, hi, I am the child component. So yet again, I just export it. And in my functional component, I can go ahead and I can import this like before. So import child from /child.js, or I don't have to do .js. And now I can go ahead and just run it. And you can see right there, it just pops up. And that's the beauty of React. It's so easy to create these kind of components that you can import, use, and just, it's fantastic. One last thing I want to mention is that right here, you will see that I wrap child in the arrows, right? And the reason I do that instead of doing it like, for example, like this, is that this won't actually initialize the component. If I do this, you will see that it doesn't actually show up. It doesn't initialize. One workaround is that you can actually create another anonymous function and just run child like that, right? Oh, actually, maybe not. I was wrong. My bad. But Yeah, you need to wrap your function in these brackets in order for it to render in mount, right? That's how React works. But let's say I don't want to display my counter over here. I want to display my counter in the child component. How would I do that? So we can use props. So I can do, hi, I am the child component. Here is the counter from the parent component. And then all I do is I take an argument called count. Where does count come from? Well, it comes from the function, right? I can grab count from up here. It still won't work. It's actually going to crash. And all I have to do is right now, you can see that, oh, I guess you can't see here. It will autofill count because it's expecting a property called count. And all I have to do is pass it down. And when I do that, it will, oh, I forgot to wrap in one component. Typical mistake, as always. Jesus. What happened here? Try reloading it? Yeah, okay, that was funny. It will grab the property from the parent component, and it will still update, right? Because as I mentioned before, your component updates either when state updates or when one of the props updates as well. So now we have the ability to create functional components, update the state, and also pass that state into other components. And I use this all the time. And the reason is that it allows a lot of flexibility, right? Let's say, for example, I want to have, let's give another example right here. Let's say I do this all the time. I want to have a text component, right? And this text component, let's say, has a bunch of styles with it. So const text is equal to this, return p. And then imagine right here, right, my styles. I have font size. Forgot, I can do that. Font size, 12 pixels. I created a new class, 12 pixels. Text decoration, underline, right? And I don't want to rewrite these styles every single time I want to use text, right? It becomes redundant. It becomes unnecessary. It's not dry. What I could do is I could use the power of props. So I can import some text from here, render it here, export default text. And then back in my functional component, I can import that text component. It's text. Oops. Oh, geez. One. Oh. And then have a bunch of different. Oh, I forgot. I need to talk about this as well. So this won't work because as you see right here, I didn't pass it as a prop. I passed it in between the brackets, right? How can I access that in a component, right? So what I did right here is called children, right? So instead of using text as a property, I can instead use children. And this will now work because React recognizes the things in between my brackets as children. That's what it's called. And it'll render it no problem. But I still have the power of this reusable component. One last thing I do want to talk about is use effect. So as Chetan did before, he used a bunch of different in his class file, component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount, right? We don't have these functions in functional components because we're not inheriting from a class. We're just creating an ES6 function. So what we can use instead is React's hook called useEffect. So same thing as useState. I can go ahead here and import useEffect. So what useEffect does, let me just pull it up right here. It's a hook. So as I mentioned before, you don't put it in return. You put it right before return. So use effect is just a function that you run. Oh, it already auto-filled stuff for me right here. Perfect. It actually tells exactly what it's going to do. So don't worry about this. So over here, I track whatever I want to update. So when this thing updates, I want it to run, let's say, this particular function, right? So right here, let's create something called log I updated. And a bit ahead, but if we remove everything from these brackets, this will work as component in mount, right? There are a few little differences, but now this will only display when the component's mounted. But let's say I want to track the count, the count property. So if I put counts in these brackets in the array, I can put multiple things right there. I can now say count updated. So now use effect is actually going ahead and tracking count. So you can see right there, keeps displaying, looks great. I think that is it on my end, unless I missed something, Chetan. Do you know? Or
Maybe just dependencies. That's pretty much it.
all dependencies, yeah. I actually can't do that. I don't have access to your terminal right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, unless you want to do it, probably be easier, honestly.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. So we just wanted to talk about like something. So there's a lot of like pre-built tools that you can use with React. So one of them is just a UI kit called Material UI. I had it right here. So it's just a UI kit that you can use for things like buttons, text, boxes, squares, whatever you want to use. So these are just some examples that they have. And with npm, if you want to install something like that, you just run this command. That's also going to take a while. Oh, okay. And it actually updates in your package.json file. Where is that? Yeah, right here. So there's a bunch of libraries like this, like Material UI is not the only one. There's a lot of them. There's one called React Router that lets you go from link to link and navigate. There's obviously a bunch of UI kits. And Adam, do you know a lot more modules that you can think of?
React Router is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Redux. So
Redux
is used a lot for managing global state. Axios is used for communicating with APIs. GraphQL, another way to communicate with a backend. Like React table, right? An easy way to just generate a table in React. Almost everything that you can think of what you need in React, someone's already made and is being used by hundreds of thousands of people, right? That's yet again the beauty of React, the vast ecosystem, right? And installing these things is just one command line, and 99% of the time it just works out of the box, and it's fantastic.
Yep. Like something like this, you can, let's see if it comes up. I'm actually gonna try to import it into my code and see if I can run it. Oh man, okay. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, oh, perfect.
So yeah, you just do something like import button from Material UI core, and to use the button, I'm just gonna copy and paste this right here, just like that.
I don't think you're running the server. Oh, you are.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, here you go. So this is a lot better than the button I have right here. And yeah, there's just so many features that you can just grab for free, by the way. You don't have to pay for any of this, where you can just have all these cool effects that you don't have to make yourself, that you can just steal for free. And that's the beauty of React coding at.
Legal plagiarism.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's it. Is there anything else you want to add?
For now, no. Yeah, I think that's it. Is there any questions? Right,
Okay.
feel free to ask us. You know a lot.
I'm going to post the GitHub link again if you want to just look at it later for fun.
What terminal do you use?
What terminal do I use? I just use the normal Mac one. I don't know.
I use Bash and Tmux. If anyone's
This
interested.
is Z Shell. Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
Would you
That's
be
the
able
one
to
I use.
explain Redux or Axios a bit? Yes, I can explain Redux for you. So Redux, all it really does is it manages global state. I don't really have the time to show it to you right now. If you want, feel free to contact me. I'll drop my email in a second, and we can talk about it all you want. I love Redux. I've worked with a year, like I've been a full year on it. But as you see right here, the only time another component can access the state from a parent component is if I go ahead and I pass it in, right? But let's say, and this happens all the time, I have component and component and component and component and component, and just keeps going down, right? And then I have to go ahead and have to pass in that prop like a million times. And let's say I have like thousands of props, which not thousands, but like tens, like dozens of props. And I have to go ahead and pass all of them in. That becomes terrible. And let's say the components in the middle don't need that prop, but the ones at the bottom do. But even though these components in the middle still need to get updated because that prop, that state prop has to go through. So what Redux does is it kind of creates like its own little section in React, and only the components that need it can go ahead, grab the state, and use it. And they will get updated, but everything else will not. So that's in the name, it's global state. Axios, I can probably show it to you right now. It's really simple. Mind installing it real quick?
Yeah, do you remember the
npm
thing?
install Axios. Have you heard of APIs? Do you know how APIs work? If not, no worries. I can explain it real quick. Yes, I've used some Google Maps APIs. Awesome, right? So what you do is you just contact the URL, and from that URL, you can pass in, let's say, I want to contact / Google Maps / ID / whatever, right? And I'm doing a post request. So that's exactly what Axios does, right? It allows on the client side, on the React side, to go ahead and communicate with a different API. And this is used all the time when it comes to communicating with the backend, right? So let's say in React Functional, I can go ahead, I can import Axios from Axios. And then right when the component mounts, let's say right here when the component mounts, I can go ahead and I can do axios.get. So I'm doing a get request. And then I can say I want to contact google.com, right? .then. So it returns a promise. In JavaScript, there's two different ways to handle promises. There's async await, and then there is just a regular way of then catch. Let's do it this way. So it's going to return, results. Oh, whoops. It's going to return a result. And with that result, I want to console.log it. And if it fails, I want to do catch and return an error. And then I want to console.log the error. Awesome. So would you mind going back? And you can actually see it errors out. Did I not type in? Network error. Oh, for some reason it doesn't want to communicate with it. Look at the Axios documentation. Did I miss something?
I don't see anything.
Yeah. Maybe let's try a different API. One really good API is, I will use this all the time, free API for testing. It's like a JSON. Hold on, what is it called? Json Placeholder. Love this thing. So I'll put it in actually right here. So what Json Placeholder is exactly what it says. It's a free way to just a website that you can test out an API, right? So let's use /posts. It loads. Come on. And then instead of putting google.com, let's put this. So, oh, whoops. I forgot to add a, there you go. So what might have happened with Google? Can you go back to the browser real quick? Let's see what.
Yeah, right here.
Awesome. And then you can see at the very bottom where it says data in the console. Let's expand that. And you can see right here, if you click data, we receive all the data from that API. So what might have happened with Google is they might have some stuff blocking APIs. Like let's say you need to run JavaScript. That's one way to do it, which is probably why it didn't work. But for example, a URL that is meant to be accessed as an API, right there, beautiful. We get everything we need. And that's the power of Axios. It's an API client side. Next question. I'm learning to develop websites with Flask. Any recommendations? Chetan, you have anything to add? I have a lot to add. I don't want to steal the thunder though.
Yeah, there's one guy I know. He actually went to Ottawa too, Tech with Tim. I don't know if you know of him. He has a full playlist that I used for, I think I used it for Flask. I'm finding the link right now, but once I do, I'll paste it in the chat. You can go ahead.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I am not much of a Flask guy. It's. I'll be honest with you. This is very opinionated. It's better than the Django. Okay, it's better than Django. It's great with what it does. But I am really in the Node.js scene, and if I could recommend, I would recommend creating a Node.js Express server. All right, especially because once you go into the more advanced stuff, like let's say you're doing GraphQL, you can only really do it on Node.js, especially with Apollo. It's just Node.js has more support, but that's not to say that Flask is bad. No, it's great, and especially for beginners, it is a fantastic way to teach anybody how to create a backend, and it's super powerful. So I don't really have any recommendations or YouTube videos per se. Yet again, I use Node.js as a backend, but you can definitely find something anywhere.
Okay. Any more wonderful questions?
Just wonderful. Any good recommendations on where to learn more backend with Node.js? Yes, actually, I can show you where I learned my Node.js backend skills. So look a little backstory. During when COVID first started and I had no school, I decided to go ahead and just learn coding. Not from scratch, but like more advanced stuff. So I actually did some browsing around, and Udemy, I found a fantastic course. Let me see where it is. From someone where I can't pronounce their name, that taught everything you need to know about creating a Node.js backend. Where is it? Sorry, give me a second here. I got to find it. This one. This is by far one of the best Node.js courses I found. Right, it is $20. In my opinion, it's way worth the money for what you learn. So let's say during summer, if you want to go ahead and learn Node.js backend, go ahead, purchase this for $20. You will learn so much. Express, MongoDB, security, it is fantastic. And yeah, don't be intimidated of Node.js. It is scary at first, especially because JavaScript is a struggle, to say the least. There are so many inconsistencies of JavaScript that even to this day, it drives me insane. Oh, it says $180 now. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. That's just Udemy's way of pricing stuff. It's like a mattress store. The real price is when it's on sale, right? Just wait like 5 days. It's gonna go back on sale, and you can buy it then, right? So yeah, don't look at the $180. It's just a scam. Yeah.
True story. It's just great marketing. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's great marketing. Don't know if it's legal.
It's legal.
Yeah, what I did was just I created another account because when you create an account, like at first, you get one free course, like at the 80% discount, and I just gifted it to myself. Yeah, it's $12 for me exactly. Right.
Wow,
The
it's
real price is
21
the
for
one.
me.
Yeah, the real price is the one that's on sale. So super cheap, great guy. He has a bunch of great courses. I've learned a lot of the stuff what I know right now from this guy. Full on recommend him.
Any
Any other
more?
questions?
Yeah, any more questions?
Don't be shy.
Okay, I think we'll start wrapping it up.
All right then.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for coming out. This has been great. We got a lot of great questions. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Love them. Yeah, anytime. Oh yes, thank you. I forgot to send my email. Right there. Go ahead. Don't be shy.